When it comes to XLM, there's three different hypothetical price scenarios that I'm thinking about. And even though nothing I say is financial advice, this is even assuming if maybe there is even an altcoin season during this cycle. But even besides that, the first scenario I do want to discuss is XLM at maybe the idea of $3, which is a 10x from here. And the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, it'd be around 96 billion. Why wouldn't this necessarily surprise me? It's because I am a big fan of Stellar, in a sense where when it comes to the Stellar blockchain, this is something that really excites me because it's lightning fast, it has amazing popularity, and also on top of that, if we take a look at Stellar, what are the kind of the main focuses the way you take a look at it? I think it's payments and as well as global trade and finance. If we take a look at the payments market, it is valued at over $2 trillion currently, so that's very massive. If we take a look at, for instance, right, the AI market, by 2030, it's expected to reach nearly $2 trillion, according to Grandview Research. Again, the payments market is already valued at over $2 trillion currently. So, again, I think that, if anything, kind of puts that into scale, right? But besides that as well, if I take a look at the global trade and finance market, it is expected to be worth up to $5 trillion in value by 2028, according to Mordor Intelligence. So when I take a look at something like that, I think Stellar is very impressive considering how, if we take a look at this payment space, this global trade and finance space, I think Stellar is arguably number 2 in terms of popularity. And of course, it's behind Ripple, right? But I'm saying that's pretty impressive in and of itself, in my opinion. And even if we take a look at other options beyond, like, let's say, Ripple or Stellar, or should I say even other alternatives beyond XRP and XLM, there's not that many that are that viable. Like, a lot of the major competitors beyond, let's say, something like XRP and XLM, their market cap, generally speaking, is below $2 billion. Let me explain what I mean by this. Take a look at XDC, right? XDC market cap is around $1 billion. We take a look at ZBCN, XCN, or should I say Zebic and Onyx, their market cap is in the hundreds of millions, let alone something like Swiftcoin or XPR, which the market cap is not even as massive as like even a ZBCN or an XCN. So I think something like Stellar really doesn't have that much stiff competition. It has some, but it's not that many. And I still think that even after this cycle's over, it's still going to be, I think, the second biggest thing out there within this space, because, again, what's going to overtake this during the cycle? I don't see XDC doing it. I don't see ZBCN. I don't see XCN doing that. I don't see Swiftcoin or even XPR. You know, granted, I'm a fan of those projects, but I don't think they're going to overtake something like Stellar, or should I say XLM. But then XLM is never going to overtake something like XRP. So yeah, I think it's still going to have that number 2 spot, hypothetically, at least in my mind. Even if, let's say, there's an altcoin season, I don't think, the other projects are going to overtake that, right? When I take a look at something like Stellar, what really excites me is that it has an aspect of ISO 20022. Now, people like to say, okay, Ripple has an aspect of that too, also XDC, but again, I still think it's pretty special when it comes to Stellar, because if we take a look at why is this kind of an important thing sometimes people, look for, I should say, when it comes to these type of projects that are focused on payments and global trade and finance. Well, it's because if we take a look at ISO 20022, that is currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. So it's pretty, well known. So again, Stellar having that aspect, I think, is very impressive, even though it's not the only one within this space that has that aspect, I should say, when it comes to, again, ISO 20022. But besides that point, when I take a look at something like Stellar, what I like about it is that even though it has this popularity, if we take a look at kind of the difference between XLM and XRP in terms of market cap, it's over 100 billion as of right now, right? I mean, if we take a look at XLM current market cap, it's nearly 10 billion. Again, it's around that $9.6 billion range. But XRP is well over 100 billion, and even not too long ago, we saw XRP reach a market cap of around 200 billion. So within this space, really, I think the difference between the number 1 and number 2 is still very massive. And the way you take a look at it is this. Even though I believe in the future of Ripple, I don't think every single person quite necessarily wants to believe in something that massive. I think sometimes people do want to look for other options, maybe during an altcoin season. And especially also just generally speaking, right? So I don't think Stellar is obsolete. I actually think that it still has its place within this market, I should say, right, of payments, global trade and finance. And again, around a $9.6 billion market cap, that's pretty massive in the grand scheme of things. But again, the difference between the number 1 and this is so massive. So I still think it is pretty big, but not too overly kind of massive. Like imagine if XLM's current market cap is like 80, 90 billion, then yeah, it's kind of like a little bit close, right? In the grand scheme of things. But this is still very far away. So I still think it's a pretty viable option, at least personally for me, even though I'm not telling it to do anything. So overall, I still like the vibe when it comes to Stellar. Sure, maybe during an altcoin season, some of these smaller market cap projects could maybe overtake XLM in terms of hypothetical percentage price increase. Like I don't think, for instance, XDC or ZVCN is going to overtake this, but maybe in terms of percentage price increase, it could be a different case because of their, relatively speaking, lower market cap. But because I feel like still, even despite that, I like kind of the stability of XLM because at around a $9.6 billion market cap, it's holding pretty strong, actually, given a time where altcoins are generally having a pullback. So, yeah, when it comes to Stellar, I like it fundamentally. I like what it's focused on. And also, I like the presence of it. I like the exchange listings as well when it comes to, let's say, in the case of XLM. So, I don't want to give up when it comes to it. And I haven't given up, actually. And when it comes to the idea, maybe $3, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if, let's say, there was an altcoin season during the cycle. However, the second price scenario that I do want to explore is maybe the idea of $4, which is around a 13.3x from here. The market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 128 billion. Which may seem like a massive kind of like task, right? But then even still, XRP current market cap is well over 100 billion, and that's not even during an altcoin season. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, we even saw XRP reach a market cap of around 200 billion not too long ago. XLM, by the way, I think is never going to overtake XRP, but if XRP could reach around 200 billion during the cycle without an altcoin season, in my perspective, what could it do if, let's say, there was an altcoin season? You know what I mean? Could it maybe 3x that, 4x that? Who knows? So is around a $128 billion market cap for, I think, arguably the number 2 within the space of payments and global chain finance, which I do believe this is, arguably, this wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But this is just my perspective. However, the third and final price scenario that I do want to explore is maybe the idea of $5. Now, that's around a 16.5x from here, and the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 160 billion. Again, when I take a look at the factors right now, I actually like it a lot better than back in 2021, because if we take a look at that year, right, again, 2021, during the peak of that bull run, there was around 300 million crypto owners, but then we fast forward to right now, supposedly, even currently without an altcoin season, in my perspective, there is even, again, allegedly over 600 million crypto owners, which is actually allegedly more than ever before in history. And keep in mind, this is without ever seeing Bitcoin at 200 gram, 250 or 300. We haven't seen that, right? And I don't think we've seen an altcoin season. We've seen some of the bigger cap altcoins do pretty good, like for instance, a BNB, which reached a new all-time high during this cycle, and also something like a Ethereum. But we haven't really seen it trickle down in such a massive way. I don't think it really has kind of shown an altcoin season during the cycle, generally speaking. So if there was one and it looked better than back then, it wouldn't surprise me, just because, again, there's pretty much double the amount of crypto owners, even right now, when compared to the peak of that bull run that year in 2021. So yeah, I just haven't, kind of had this mindset where, oh, if let's say there was an altcoin season, it's going to look worse than back then. I don't have that mindset. Seeing XLM maybe at that point, $5 wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, when is there going to be an altcoin season? Well, I can't say I know the exact date because I don't. The only thing I can do, literally, is stay patient, and that's pretty much about it. Like, for instance, I can take a look back in history, but clearly, it's kind of not playing out like what we've seen historically speaking. Let me explain what I mean by this. And this, I think, kind of also showcases why it's not possible for me to know when there's exactly going to be an altcoin season, because, first of all, usually altcoins, as a worst-case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. So the last Bitcoin halving event that happened in April of last year, 18 months from then would mean October this year, right? However, clearly, it's pretty much the end of October. It's going to be November soon. And where's the altcoin season? So again, even based off history, like, we haven't even seen it this time around, right? So that's why I don't think I can even really find the perfect moment when there's going to be even an altcoin season, maybe, if it ever even decides to happen, because we've seen that sometimes history doesn't always repeat itself. Also, on top of that, the way I take a look at it is that even if I pulled up a price chart, I drew a random triangle, I drew a falling wedge pattern or something like that, even still, do you think the market's going to care about what I have to do? Absolutely not. Is it going to care what I have to do on that price chart? No. So why would I do that? Like, personally for me, what I'd rather do is just stay patient, hold, and I just wait. Because by me dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting, if let's say there's a time when the market really does take off in a massive way, maybe, right? It's kind of like preparing in and of itself because I was just holding. I didn't have to find the perfect moment. I was just preparing for the moment, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. I get it. Altcoins are not doing the best as of right now, but who knows, right? Things could maybe be different months later. Because let's take a look at XLM not too long ago, let's say like 2 years ago or something like that. The narrative was completely different than right now. So the way I view it is that things can change. It doesn't mean it will, but I've seen it time and time again, and I just haven't given up. That's the way to take a look at it. I'm just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. Even though I'm not telling you to do anything, this is just personally my perspective on what I'm doing when it comes to XLM. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. I hope y'all have a nice day. I want to say thank you for watching. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.